week on WWE Cooking, Kane grills up some delicious foie gras. Now some people like mesquite, others swear by briquettes. Let's see what Kane prefers. Hey, that's dynamite! Oh, Kane, I don't think that's...
In late 2024, ahead of the WWE's weekly programming becoming part of their schedule, streaming service Netflix debuted a multi-part documentary called Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon was an eponymous multi-part documentary about the life of the long-serving and business-altering visionary ex-chairman Vincent Kennedy McMahon. It showed his life both as a ruthless promoter and his on-screen persona, an exaggerated version of himself, which appears not to be very exaggerated if not only the documentary, but also legal issues that have come up in the last couple of years seem to prove. We now know much more about the man than we did before, and well, perhaps sometimes more than we need to, thank you very much. At his age, it's not uncommon to soil yourself, but it definitely is uncommon to soil someone else. So all in all, we've uncovered that, as is the case on most occasions, power corrupts, and billionaires are generally not brilliant people. Still, at least his reach was contained to that of the Raw and SmackDown locker room and offices, and despite a couple of failed attempts to diversify via protein drinks, a twice-launched sports entertainment version of American football, and a bodybuilder promotion, he's never gone much beyond this. Imagine, though, if Vince not only had a near monopoly over wrestling, but the entirety of television itself. Yeesh. Well, imagine no longer, as in March 2003, these awful shower time dark thought musings were made flesh. Well, code anyway, as this is the central conceit of what must be one of the most unusual games that bared the WWE logo. Yes, indeed, Mr. McMahon has been made overseer of every single show on the entirety of US network television, which would seem very far-fetched if someone like Donald Trump didn't exist. For some reason, McMahon has decided to downsize the inherited vast workforce of on-air personalities of American television in favour of leaning on the trusted lieutenants of his 2003-era wrestling roster. That's an awful lot of work on top of wrestling. If only they'd been able to unionise in the 1980s, but that grass Hulk Hogan and McMahon himself put an end to that. Certainly they wouldn't be forced to compete in a surely fatally dangerous televised vehicle war that makes up the gameplay of WWE Crush Hour. WWE Crush Hour was released by THQ in a particularly experimental period of WWE video gaming. As well as this vehicular murder 'em up combat game, they also released an interactive collectible card game on the PC called WWE with Authority, as well as an incredibly dull scrolling beat 'em up on the Game Boy Color called WWE Betrayal. Crush Hour was released on the GameCube and PS2 and is pretty much identical on both, so if you don't mind, I'll be concentrating on the PS2 version here, and that's the bottom line because Manchild says so. That's a line from the thing we're talking about now, isn't it? Ooh, aren't I good at this, YouTube? An Xbox version was in development, but ultimately it was cancelled. Sorry, Xbox owners. THQ apparently released this at a slightly lower price point than the main series, which either suggests they weren't at all sure that this would sell, or they were being really, really nice. I wonder which it was. WWE Crush Hour was coded for THQ by Pacific Coast Power and Light. They had experience of vehicle-based games as they were the team behind Jet Moto 3, Road Rash 64, and a couple of PS2 motocross games featuring Ricky Carmichael. The Ricky Carmichael. Yes, the Ricky Carmichael. No, I'm British and I'm dumb, so I've got no idea who Ricky Carmichael is. We begin with the nightmarish vision of a media world McMahonised, and then it's on to the nitty-gritty of the pugilists in pants in cars. You can do an exhibition or take part in a season mode where you can unlock more wrestlers and arenas to do battle in. Throughout the mayhem of season mode, you'll get humorous adverts starring the grapplers as you compete in various vehicular bouts with varying amounts of opponents and rule sets, with the eventual aim being to bring down Vince McMahon in his limousine. This time without legal advice. Once he's defeated, the wrestlers will down tools and go back to being wrestlers. Does this mean that Vince failed at another non-wrestling thing? Even in the fictional world of early millennial video games, the guy just can't catch a break. There are plenty of characters to pick from, all of which have their own character-specific vehicles looking all jazzy and themed, and that. The roster is very representative of the WWE during a very exciting transitional period, as well as stars of the Attitude Era like Triple H, Stone Cold and The Rock. There's the cream of their recent acquisition of rivals ECW and WCW in people like Booker T and Rob Van Dam. There are old boys like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair still kicking around, and also fast-rising talent like Brock Lesnar, Edge and the Hardy Boys. Divas too are represented with folk like Stacy Keibler and Trish Stratus, should you wish to either prove or disprove the scurrilous rumours that women are bad drivers. Still, 32 competitors are on offer, all with their own attributes, and well, have that Twisted Metal, you can't compete with that. Just ignore the problematic ones like Chris Benoit. An interesting thing that I noticed was, unlike the proper actual wrestling games in the series, not all of the wrestlers' themes are accurate, which is likely a cost-saving measure, with the WWE only incorporating the songs penned by in-house musician Jim Johnson. There are kinda sound-alikes used for Hogan, Nash, Booker T and the Hardy Boys among others, but they only get played at the beginning and end of each of the bouts, so they're not really that noticeable. There's no races as such in this, it's purely Twisted Metal inter-car brawling, but there are at least efforts made to give you a bit of variety to proceedings aside from filling Rikishi's enormous cellulite-ridden bottom with hot car gun lead. All of the matches, inverted commas, are based on an event or a match type. Hardcore mode sees each wrestler race to a belt, and once they've got it, try to keep hold of it for 30 seconds. Hell in a Cell will have you fighting in a cage with the last remaining competitor given a special contract. Once the cage is lifted, the winner has to race to their goal before being blasted and the contract stolen. Yes, it's capture the flag, only with a sprinkling of WWE magic. They are just a few examples so you get the idea. Presentation as a whole is a mixed bag. They've recorded little voice clips of the wrestlers hollering taunts at each other when they blow each other up, which is nice. Jim Ross and Jonathan Coachman turn up to commentate, sort of. I mean, Jim Ross will basically say someone's name and then what the weapon they pick up, and he'll repeat the same phrases over and over again. So yeah, not really commentary in the classic sense of the word. Graphically, the cars and locales are okay, but there's significant motion blur when you turn too quickly. The gameplay is pretty much how you'd expect if you've played Twisted Metal. You zoom hither and dither, shooting, picking up power-ups and trying to stay alive, unless you've selected one of the aforementioned assorted other game modes. It's relentless stuff when you first play. Your opponents have an axe to grind and they want to grind it on your face, and that they will. They are unerring in their aim and quick at first, but once you get to grips with the controls and the layouts of the arenas, you'll be giving as good as you get. It is quite fun, I guess, but once you've played Twisted Metal and Carmageddon, you realise it's not as fun as them. It's not doing anything wrong as such. The controls are fine and the game is perfectly functional and varied. It's just that there are better proponents of the genre available. I don't mind it. I'll probably play it again, but not very often. IGN reviewed the game in March 2003. They said despite being an inferior car combat product, gamers who have a few bucks to burn and half an hour or two could find that Crush Hour may be worth the investment. They gave it a 6.2 out of 10. GameSpot gave it the once-over in March 2003. They opined, while Crush Hour definitely has its share of problems, the game itself isn't all bad. Considering the budget price and the pieces of the game do provide a minimal amount of entertainment, die-hard WWE fans might at least want to give the game a try. Anyone else, however, would be wise to steer clear of WWE Crush Hour. So yes, a short-lived experience, but nowhere near as horrendous as being a young intern locked in a room with a 80-year-old wrestling executive and his errant bow. So like, subscribe, and K thanks bye.